you back now to the Pietermaritzburg High Court. Our team, Siphamandla Goge, Thulasizwe Simelane, and also Des Ntafi is there. Here's Siphamandla with someone arriving at court.
What do you make of these reports that the leaders of the ANC, Tony Yengeni, as well as Shule, and others must be disciplined for their utterances here?
Well, what wrong did they do?
Sorry?
What wrong did they do here? They did not do anything wrong. They were addressing members of society. That was not the ANC rally outside. It was not the ANC function. It was people coming to support Jacob Zuma. So the SG did not address an ANC meeting. He addressed supporters of President Zuma, not the ANC.
But Mr. Masongane, we need to get a word from you. I mean, talk to us about your continued support for the former president.
Let's talk later.
Later?
Yeah.
What do you make of the views that leaders such as Tony Yengeni, Shule must be disciplined?
No comment for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that is Joe Masongane here, the former minister, as well as one of the leaders of the ANC and members who are continuing to come to Pietermaritzburg High Court to support the former President Gareth. Let me tell you that we will walk down this passage. My colleague Joe Komane will turn around as we go back there to check for more leaders of the ANC that are coming here to show their continued support to the former president. We have already spotted the former finance minister Malusi Gigaba making his way inside courtroom. We spoke to him. He says he's here to show solidarity to the former president. Remember, he's also facing his own challenges, having appeared before the Zondo Commission for those serious allegations about bags of money from the Guptas. We asked him about it. He said that is the matter for the commission. If I can ask Joe Komane to come with me and show you this heightened security here outside the Pietermaritzburg High Court. These are some of the police officers that you see here. We'll try and be careful as we are trying to cross here so that we don't get involved in an accident. But please come with us as we show you. Take a look at this massive police deployment here. These are some of the police officers that have been brought here for what we call reinforcement as they anticipate more supporters of former President Jacob Zuma. If Joe can pen and show you a police inyala inside there where the stage is set. So these are some of the police deployed here to ensure that they keep a close eye on what is happening as we see more and more supporters of former president arriving here. But for now, we'll have to take it back to you, Karat, if you are still with us.
Indeed, we are, Siphamandla. Thank you very much indeed as you continue to keep an eye on who is arriving. And let me go over to Thulasizwe Simelane about this. Thulas, I would like to discuss with you about, just as briefly as possible, the ANC KwaZulu-Natal branches, the PEC, the NWs, or the PWC, and the kind of support that they've been showing. We saw the briefing yesterday when I was on air talking about the support for the former president, but now we're hearing from the ANC that there is potential concern around people who are speaking on the stage and their utterances that they are saying on stage, but then we also have people being booed who are appearing on stage. So I know how well you know KZN ANC politics. Just how important is this perception of who is on stage, who is being supported, and who is being booed? Because outside of the courtroom, let's not forget how big a political story this is within the ANC.
So two things very quickly, Garrett, before we proceed. Let me tell you that just looking at my monitor from the movement inside the court precinct, I was right in my suspicion that former President Jacob Zuma has actually arrived, is inside the court precinct. We caught a glimpse of him moving from one area of the court building to another. There is a holding room where he usually goes. The difference is, of course, is that today the sirens that usually accompany his arrival, well, I don't think we heard them at all today. It wasn't as loud and as dramatic as it usually is.
Thulas, I'm going to have to interrupt you for a moment. Thulas, let me come back to Siphamandla. Thulas, forgive me. We found more people with Siphamandla. Siphamandla, over to you.
Good spirit. There's COVID. Sorry, how is it doing, Dudu?
Okay, come.
Okay. Okay. No, we are giving a space, just give you a space. But now, as a family, Duduzile, how do you feel? Okay, that is former President Jacob Zuma's daughter here, Thulasizwe Zuma. We know that she's been with her father for a very long time. Even during that rape trial, she was there. But Thulasizwe, if we can get a comment from you as a family, how are you feeling? Your father is back here. Please indulge us. Just a second, one comment. How are you feeling? Please? Is he in good spirits?
Please give us space.
Okay, she's not giving us much there, basically saying, well, nothing, but we know that she's been with her father for a very long time, supporting her during difficult times, so she's also here as part of family members. We also expect that her twin brother, Thulasizwe, will be here. Be careful, Joe Komane, don't trip over there. Rather, let's turn around and go that direction, my brother, please, so that we get more people arriving here. So that is what is happening here at this hallway or passage, Gareth Edwards. Tell you that more leaders and supporters are coming to the Pietermaritzburg High Court.
Joe Kamane, our camera person, and Siphamandla Goge are going to do the 100-meter dash a few times today in a suit and tie and work shoes. Let him catch his breath for a moment. Siphamandla, we'll come back to you as soon as possible. Thulasizwe, I'm sorry about that. Of course you would understand that we had to break away to go and try and get a comment from Thulasizwe Zuma. Despite Siphamandla trying, no comment from her. But you were saying her father arriving, Jacob Zuma, you caught a glimpse of him, and you were talking about the holding room.
Yeah, absolutely, Gareth. And I am on standby. If you spot someone else, I will immediately pause and Siphamandla and the rest of the team can take it over. But I can confirm that we did see visually former President Jacob Zuma inside the court precinct. So he's already here and has arrived. And you were talking about the ANC politics. I mean, I think now the dynamic has actually become even more complicated with this statement from the National Working Committee of the ANC saying that they've observed what they called unbecoming and divisive behavior by Ace Mahashule, Tony Yengeni during the court appearance and Carl Niehaus during the court appearance of former President Jacob Zuma last week. Let me try and sway the conversation towards the reason why we are here with Ayanda Shazi of Ayanda Shazi and Associates Incorporated, a firm of attorneys here. But if you do need to take it over, Gareth, feel free and do that right away. Ayanda, as we bring up this this graphic of this plea, you and I are going to have a conversation while we show that on screen, Mr. Zuma's plea. Just in summary, what is your understanding of what he's asking for, Mr. Jacob Zuma?
In summary, the special plea is an interlocutory application that he's doing. Over and above that, there's supposed to be a trial that's supposed to start. So he's basically saying in simple terms, wait, court, before this trial even begins, I want you to actually look into this particular person who is the prosecutor and look into the affairs of this prosecutor and the way that he has handled this case thus far, because we as the defense are of the view that he's not a fit and proper person to proceed in handling this matter in an impartial way without any influence from any other fractions or any other political parties, because they are of the view that he has been tainted in some way and he has a hidden agenda behind him. Now it's going to be, like I said before, it's going to be an uphill battle for the defense team of JZ to try and actually persuade the court in seeing what they are seeing, so to say, as per the special plea. And if they do succeed, then they have now also said that in terms of a subsection of that section, that they want this particular, they want to be acquitted. Yeah. But now one could say, okay, then why don't we just remove Billy Downer and then put someone else and then proceed with the matter, you know?
Does that tell you that they're emboldened to even be gunning for an out-and-out acquittal to say, if you agree with us
Yes.
that Billy Downer has no title to prosecute,
Yes.
you should actually proceed
Yes.
and give us an acquittal.
Yes,
That's bold. isn't it?
It's very bold. As for the case that you had also stated yesterday, there was a similar request and it was taken out. It was like, no, why should we acquit you? Why should we acquit you? So they're trying to move away what they're saying to them, the crest of the issue, which is the actual case, you know. But if they, chances, I'm not saying I'm foreseeing what's going to happen, but chances of them succeeding are very, very slim because it has never happened before, more especially in other decided cases. A lot needs to be proved, a lot of boxes need to be checked by the courts as a whole, and for them to actually arrive at this decision.
Yeah. All right, Ayanda, let's pause there for a moment. There, Gareth, there, visually, there is former President Jacob Zuma moving around inside the court precinct. That's the passageway just outside of Courtroom A. As you can see, they're surrounded by his protection unit and waving at some of the people that are there. A lot of the people that are inside there, you know, those leaders of the ANC that associate themselves with former President Jacob Zuma. We saw Malusi Gigaba already arriving. Joe Maswanganyi, former minister, also among the people who are here. And of course, the usual people that you can expect, the likes of Carl Niehaus, also here, Siphamandla Goge, keeping an eye as we show you now what it's looking like inside Courtroom A, prepared in line with the precautions that are being taken around COVID-19. Those perspex glass screens that have been erected. We've been talking about the screens, the TV screens that have been set up for when we get to the point where, you know, some of the people will need to participate remotely. For instance, the representative of accused number 2, the company Thales, we don't expect that person will be there in person, having traveled from France. They are likely to be joining via a connection, a digital connection. They are represented, of course, by the advocate Barry Rue. Is their legal representative. So
there for a moment, Thulasizwe, I'm going to move away from you. Let's go back over to Siphamandla Goge. Thulas, my apologies, Siphamandla. Let's come to you now.
We are here to work, but let's try and get here. You are the PEC member, Mbimbi. This resolution of the PEC to support.
I'm here to implement the resolution. That's why I'm here to support him.
Sorry. But my question was,
what parcel of the collective?
What do you make of those utterances that those leaders such as Tony Ngeni and the SG must be charged?
I'm not the spokesperson of the ANC, you know that?
Sorry?
We have the spokesperson of the ANC in Tagani Pondombele.
Yeah. Okay, there's a scrum here.
Okay. Thank you, Bob.
If this gentleman can allow us to ask two questions, please.
About the budget of Etegwin here.
About former President Jacob Zuma and the support?
No. I'm here to support the president. That's all I can say.
Okay, that is Mkolisi Kaunda, is the mayor of Etegwini and the member of the Provincial Executive Committee of the ANC. As you see that scrum half there with the members of the MKMVA trying to push us away. You can turn around, Joe Komani, let's go back there. We expect the arrival of Sihle Zigalala, as well as former Etegwini mayor and chair of the ANC, Zandile Kumede there.
Not let it ever be said that Siphamandla Goge is not going to do everything he can, Thulasizwe, to try and get his microphone to public officials who really should not be ignoring the media. They are public officials at a public place, a public court, and he's getting his arm in there and his microphone in there, pushing for answers, and while doing a good a job as he can. Some people just not willing to speak about this. And this is what we were talking about earlier, the kind of support, Thulas, and I know I interrupted you again. We saw the former president arriving. It's as though there are ANC members coming out, and you know the ANC politics better than I would ever. They're coming out to support, but aren't willing to almost go on camera stating why they are here to support. It's almost a case of just wanting to be seen, or is that too flippant an observation on my behalf?
The complexity of it all, Gareth, is that the PSC, the Provincial Executive Committee of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, has a position that they should support former President Jacob Zuma to sort of rein in elements that they say tend to hijack the platform, particularly the stage from where that music you're hearing in the background is blaring. The argument by the ANC KwaZulu-Natal is that ANC members are going to show up anyway to support former President Jacob Zuma. So why not take some kind of leadership in directing and channeling all of that energy? But it didn't really work out so well last week, as we saw Siphamandla and the provincial secretary Ntumiseni Ntuli being booed while they were on the stage there and greeting the supporters of former President Jacob Zuma. I argue that actually this thing has now become even more complex with the National Working Committee decision and basically the outcome and them condemning what they're saying is unbecoming and divisive and defiant behavior by Ace Mahashule, Tony Yengeni and Carl Niehaus. How does the ANC KwaZulu-Natal play a balancing role in a situation where, you know, the National Working Committee feels that there are elements of ill discipline displayed by some of the leaders who show up here? Last week, the PEC members, the top leadership gets booed, and now they have to keep true to that resolution that they have to support the former president of the ANC. It's murky waters, it's tricky waters for them to navigate politically.
Thulasizwe, let me leave you for a moment. Thulas, I'm going back to Siphamandla.
But let's talk about this continued support.
Now, what do you want us to talk about?
You were booed last week. How do you feel about that? And are you worried that you will be booed here today?
What is primary is that we're here to give the support to the former president, comrade, former President Jacob Zuma. As to what other people are saying, doesn't matter, because the primary intention is to give the former president the support. Booing is not an issue which can stop us or which can make us angry against particular individuals. We have been subjected to booings in different platforms, and eventually we will engage with those people and find each other. So we're not here about booing, we're here to support the former president. Thank you.
Step aside.
That is not an issue I can address here because the Secretary's office is dealing with that matter. Thank you.
The NWC says there may be more charges against the SG for his
Hey, Gareth, let me tell you that we are trying to get out of the
NWC. Thank you.
But what is your view on the NWC statement?
The NWC has a spokesperson. The NEC has a spokesperson. Thank you.
Well, that is the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Siphamandla, who is also the chairperson of the ANC in the province. Basically, he is saying they will continue to support the former president here. But, Mr. Zikalala, some people say you were booed because you have neglected the former president.
Well, go and ask them whether we have neglected the former president or not, and how have we neglected it.
But some will also say this poses a challenge to you politically and the provincial secretary.
Guys, no, it's not acceptable.
Work, okay.
Yeah.
You know, you'll get time to speak to me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That is the chairperson of the ANC in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. As we go back to that hallway again to look for more.
It's Siphamandla Goge on the hunt this morning. If ever there was no fear, no favour, it is our Thulasizwe Simelane and Siphamandla Goge running marathons in Pietermaritzburg. We won't mention the Comrades Marathon, Thulasizwe, obviously, but running marathons up and down the stairs as he gets comment from public officials. There we just heard from Sikhle Zikalala, and also putting the question in about the booing, isn't it? And it was booing gate last week. Some were denying it happened, some were saying it was deliberate.
You know, Gareth, in addition to his persistence and relentlessness, Siphamandla Goge has the advantage that behind us here, the people that are arriving are sort of being funneled in that there's a narrow passageway, really. There's no escape room between them coming from the streets where they are parked and getting into the courtroom building, into the court building. There's a narrow passageway which gives the likes of Siphamandla Goge the advantage. Again, Gareth, let's say to our viewers We want to sort of sway the conversation to the legal aspects of it, the reason why we are here. But if you do spot someone else, you can pause at any moment. So let me try and be ambitious and try and bring in the response that we expect to hear from the National Prosecuting Authority. Take a listen to what Sipho Ngwema had to say about the plea filed by former President Jacob Zuma before I bring it back to the two attorneys who join me in conversation. But of course, if we do spot someone else, we can always pause that sound clip. Take a listen to Sipho Ngwema on the plea that has been filed.
All right, Thulas, I think we might have a problem with that particular soundbite. In fact, no, my team are telling us now we do have that soundbite. Team, if we can play that soundbite for Thulas, we can give us some context.
So if you look at the plea that they gave to us, which I must first say that their papers are not in order, they have not given us any supporting documentation, and therefore it's going to be difficult today here, which is going to lead to another delay, which we think that it's by design, not by default, because this is how matters should proceed according to how the defense wants to run the case. But in terms of the prosecutor, we have no doubt that he is a professional, he abides by the National Prosecuting Authority Code, and therefore he's biased in terms of the facts, what has happened, and in terms of the law. And therefore the plea has no basis.
Well, Thulasizwe, apart from the argument of no basis for the recusal, perhaps before I start saying goodbye to you this morning and I hand over to you, Veka Rangapal, part of that conversation you had as well was about papers not being in order.
Yeah, absolutely, Gareth. In fact, I want to bring in Mabo Nene, an attorney as well. Also joining me, Ayanda Shazi, also an attorney here in KwaZulu-Natal. Mabo, just very quickly, we are also on standby, so I've got to alert you. When we do spot someone that we want to hear from, I will ask and pause you immediately. But Sipho Ngwema says the documents that are filed by Mr. Zuma and his lawyers are inadequate. They don't have supporting affidavits. What do you think? You've had a chance to have a glimpse into the plea. What do you make of it?
Is the plea itself establishes certain facts in which Mr. Zuma relies on, you know, when you look at the history of the case itself. So in terms of saying it's inadequate, that's something that would be now an argument that his attorneys and definitely the prosecution would look at. But I would think he has put everything that he needs to put in for him to make an argument in relation to the prosecutor, as it were. If you look at some of the arguments, they've never been raised in the court. They are only raised now for the first time, and the court is going to have to test them for the first time without considering whether the SCA has ruled on some of the things as we've been hearing or saying. So those are the things. To say it's inadequate, one would have to look at maybe there is a strategy behind how the papers are presented, but the court will still have to decide on them, and there is enough for the court to make a ruling on.
All right. Before I bring it to you, Ayanda, and we continue to be on standby for more of those political leaders and other role players who are coming to support the former president of the ANC, and we will pause as soon as we hear that. But I want to play back a clip again of Sipho Ngwema talking and explaining exactly what documents these are that they are talking about, saying that the plea that has been filed lacks supporting documents. Take a listen to what he said in terms of specificity. What documents is he talking about?
The document that we have been given makes all sorts of allegations, but what we have not been given is annexures and sources and confirmatory affidavit around many of the things that they refer to, third parties that they are talking about. And therefore, you have a document that purports all sorts of conspiracy theories with no supporting documentation, so that we can be able, as the prosecuting authority and the legal team, to be able to respond effectively in terms of what they are pleading for. So those are the papers that we want. Those are the annexures that we need in order for us to be able to be in a position to reply effectively to their plea.
As we come up to 9 o'clock, this is Newslink on eNCA.